What's going on, guys? Aaron from HTC here, and I know you've been waiting for this one, and now that CTIA is over, well, here it is, the HTC ThunderBolt full review. 1 GHz Snapdragon processor, 8 megapixel camera on the back with dual LED flashes, 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera, so you can, shoot those MySpace pictures and do all those MySpace curves like you wild individuals do. Kickstand on the back, you can't hate on the kickstand. Capacitive buttons on the bottom. Android 2.2 with the newest version of HTC Sense, and best of all, it's running 4G LTE. It's actually Verizon's first phone to have LTE capability, so it's running a super fast network. Is this the device to have, or should you hold off for something like the LG Revolution or the Samsung 4G LTE device, which we think is going to be called the Charge? Which one should you get? We'll find out in the full review. If you hear lightning outside, well, it's because the HTC ThunderBolt has finally launched. It's a new... I knew I could make one more bad joke out of that. Anyway, 1 GHz processor. Let's go through some of the specs really quickly. 1 GHz processor. And actually, while I'm thinking about that, I don't know if I can drink this. This is a cup of coffee I've been drinking out of all morning, and it has Sprint on it. So I feel like it's kind of a conflict of interest. But I'm going to keep drinking it because I need more caffeine. So first of all, special thanks to our friends at Verizon for hooking us up with a review unit. But anyway, awesome device, $249.99 at Verizon with a 2-year agreement, $599.99, which is a little bit expensive, but still, if you're buying it full retail. So it's the first device outside of the data cards to support Verizon's new 4G LTE network, and which, if you do care about it, it's running in the 700 megahertz spectrum. So it's intended to be this beachfront spectrum where if you walk into a building with somebody like an HTC Evo 4G, which I'll plan to do a dogfight in the coming days. But, 4G on Sprint, 2500 megahertz, 4G on Verizon, 700 megahertz. Theoretically, the lower the megahertz, the easier it is to go into the building. The higher it is, the harder it is to penetrate the building. Anyway, let's talk about the specs of this device. 1 GHz Snapdragon processor, 4.3-inch display, 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera up here. And on the back, you have your 8 megapixel camera with a dual LED flash. Now, you have the kickstand. It's a little bit bigger than the one, the Evo. And I'm going to compare this several times in the video to the Evo and the Inspire because really, save for some design changes, they're all very similar in a lot of ways. Speaker on the back and kickstand there with Google written on the side. Now you have your 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, power button, you have your nothing on that side, microphone, and then on the bottom right hand side your micro USB charging port. No HDMI port on this device. Let's pull out the battery. It's 1400 milliamp battery. I just want to show you what it looks like. Battery on the back, SIM card slot down here. I don't want to pull it out because it'll turn it off. Micro SD actually up here, and it comes pre-installed, like I said, with a 32 gigabyte micro SD card. So you get a lot of storage out of the box, and the design, it's a little bit thicker than the Evo. It actually feels heavier, but it's not. But it is a little bit thicker. It is running Android 2.2 with HTC Sense, and it's actually running HTC Sense 2.0. Say that 3 times fast. HTC Sense 2.0, which enables some cool customizations that 1.5, which is what the Evo is running, does not. So you look at this, for example, you'll notice the button down here has changed to where you can do some personalization, and it's not that it's that different, but one of my favorites is instead of going with that stock HTC skin on the home screen, you can switch it up. So if you want to go to metal, for example, we'll apply that. It'll change around some of the color schemes, and then you can you'll see the background changes as well. And so there's some customization options you get in this that you don't get on the Evo 4G. Now, the one place where the Inspire, AT&T's Inspire, pulls ahead is it has the full rendition of HTC Sense 2.0. Verizon's kind of locked some of this down. And if you remember back to my video, and if you don't worry, we're going to do a dogfight, but in the coming days. But if you remember back to my video on the Inspire, where it says skins, apply is over here, and then you have the option to get more skins, which you can connect to the HTC store and grab some extra skins. So Verizon's locked that down. It's not as customizable as the Inspire, but you still get these options. Widgets as well. But before I get into the widgets, let's see what's installed on this device. This is one of the kind of downsides of this device. There's a ton of preloaded applications on this device. Adobe Reader, BitBop, Blockbuster, City ID. Let me just look at some of the non-Google stuff. Let's Golf. Let's see. Rhapsody, Rock Band, Slacker, TuneWiki, VCast Apps, VCast Media, VZ Navigator, and then not counting little things like Kindle, which is really not but still you get the idea. A lot of stuff pre-installed on this. You cannot remove those applications, so it is kind of frustrating to get this thing out of the box. You're like, brand new phone, let me fill it up. And granted, you have 40 gigabytes of storage space, but it's kind of frustrating to see all those apps. I don't know if you're like me, but just to see all those apps that you wish you could, uninstall just to conserve space, and you can't because they're there no matter what you do. So, kind of frustrating. Anyway, HTC Sense 2.0, despite the the customization changes, you can. I don't know why I'm having trouble talking today. Customization changes. You can see that it's pretty much the same layout. 7 home screens, pinch to bring those out, pinch to bring one in. So if you want to go up here to this one, bring it in that way. And then of course you can do that by tapping home twice as well. Same weather widgets. Now a lot of this changes. If you saw the Evo 3D video here at, let me pull it in here so you can see it. If you saw the Evo 3D video at CTIA this week, that's Sense 3.0. So there are a lot of exciting changes that are coming from that as well. Weather changes, really a ground up change as opposed to 2.0 being more of an evolutionary change from Sense 1.5. So you can see, very similar there. But let's take a look at the widgets, and you can see when I press and hold, instead of that little widget thing that you're used to on some of the other Android devices, it brings up this personalized menu. We can do a widget, for example, and I can browse all HTC widgets, and I can get more as well. So this is one of those places where I can get some more HTC widgets, but still, a lot of the personalization options. And you'll notice in the menu, I don't mean to keep going back, but you'll see that HTCSense.com is not installed on this device. So you can't install that, so you don't get the benefits like the ability to ring the phone if you've lost it, the ability to lock it, the ability to remote wipe it, and the ability to download some cool customized content for the phone. So that is not there. But anyway, let's go back to the widgets and take a look. They're all the same widgets that you're used to from previous HTC devices, and they're grouped the exact same way by HTC and by Android. So if you look at this, you can see there are 2 calendar ones. For example, you can pick between HTC's or Android, and you'll see that the HTC widgets, as always, they're very coordinated. They are very beautiful. They look great. And you can see, for example, if I can get it on this one, the agenda widget. I don't know why it's so hard. There we go. Okay. The agenda widget, they're very clean. They look great. The only downside is they do take up a lot of space. Like you see a favorites here, friend stream here, which is HTC social aggregation software. They do take up a lot of space, but still absolutely beautiful widgets. And in most cases with HTC's widgets, you do get at least the option to use a smaller one. Before we get into a conversation about LTE, let's talk a little bit about the actual hardware specs. This has a 1 gigahertz Snapdragon processor, and while it's single core, I've been very impressed with the speeds. I mean, absolutely fantastic. Little to no lag that I've seen whatsoever. I mean, you can see it loads and moves around pretty quickly. And I think the concern was when this device came out, dual core processors are beginning to get more and more popular. NVIDIA is releasing them. Even Qualcomm with the Snapdragon processor, they're releasing one as well in the Evo 3D. It's a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon processor. So all these processor companies are really jumping on this dual-core bandwagon. And the concern was that the Thunderbolt was going to age itself before it launched. That it was only going to be around for 2 or 3 months and then going to be replaced by something like the Droid Bionic, where it was just substantially faster. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I've been really impressed with the Thunderbolt. It brings that 4.3-inch form factor that everybody loved on the Evo 4G and later the Inspire. It brings it to the Verizon side, so I think there's definitely a market for it. That said, let me go back to some Sense 2.0 stuff. You can see here the carousel up top, which is very typical Sense 2.0 up there. Now, a couple of other minor changes that I've picked up on. For example, I mean, other than, minus the 2.0, the minor changes, it's really just like the Sense that you remember from a lot of these devices of the past. The one change I picked up on is instead of grouping the numbers together by your missed calls and by your received calls, etc., it does put a balance in between those. So, for example, if I dial 611 and I hang up, you can see as soon as it pops up that it puts a separation between those. So I know which ones are my missed calls, which ones are my received calls, and then which ones are my contacts versus kind of a whole jumbled mess. I still don't like, and when this I thought the second one was going to pop up, but let's just dial a fake number, for example. We'll hang up, and you can see what I'm talking about. It'll group those together, and then your contacts and more will be done here. I still don't like how it groups them at all, but it is a little bit better. But down here in the phone app, you can see exactly the same. You can go to all your contacts. You can see they do a good job with this. HTC really organizes this well. So in the case of Billy Bob, for example, I can scroll through here and see messages, mail, updates and events, gallery, call history, and more. So if I really want to have a conversation with Billy Bob, I'm like, when did we last talk about cleaning out the shed, or fill in the blank. Go to messages, and you can scroll through individual messages with Billy Bob and see where the message is about cleaning out the shed. So pretty organized there. Let's take a look at the web browser and see. And again, you see portrait landscape, very quick, very responsive. We'll load up HTC.com. Let's see here. HTC.com, and while it's loading, it should load up pretty quickly because Charlotte is a 4G LTE market. And one thing I have to give them credit about while that's loading, they really did a good job with the expansion of LTE. At least using this area as an example, as soon as you go 4 miles outside of the city limits, Sprint's WiMAX cuts off, T-Mobile's HSPA Plus cuts off. They're very serious about within the city limits and within the city limits only. Whereas LTE does branch out. They realize that the metropolitan areas, not everybody lives in the city proper, so it's nice that they cut that, or they included it. You can see pinch to zoom pretty quick, and you see while the flash ads are loading here. This is Android 2.2, so obviously it comes with flash. Pinch to zoom very reasonably fast. I've had no issues whatsoever, and then you can tap in or tap out. Tap in. I feel like we're wrestling. Tap in, tap out. But you can see very quick portrait landscape orientation. And again, let's say you want to open a new page, and then let's say you want to go back to HTC. So we'll see Windows. It gives you this nice little picturesque transition screen. So all in all, been pretty fast for me. And even with a page, that has a lot of content like HTC, up and down pretty quick. I really haven't had any issues. Now, of course, that I'm saying that, it is lagging a little bit, but I haven't had any issues with my time while I'm using it. But you can see apparently right now it's deciding to lag. Take that with a grain of salt. I've been pleased with it, but occasionally, I'm sure like any other device, it does experience its slowdown. So now you see refresh, RSS information up here. You can add a subscription, and then the menu, very typical browser menu. Add bookmarks. You can view your bookmarks, and then you can go into the settings and more on the browser. So, to me, the LTE's been pretty quick. That said, in Orlando at CTIA, if you saw my tweets or any of my comments, I had some serious LTE issues. It kept going between LTE and 3G and then cutting down to 1X. Verizon's service was not the best in Orlando, and I'm not sure if they're having an LTE issue or what's going on, but the data speeds have not been fast at all lately, and they seem to be very intermittent. It'll be fast for like 15 minutes, and then it'll die off for 2 hours, and then it'll come back for 30 minutes. So I don't know if it's the strain of all the Thunderbolts being on the network or what, but it's certainly pretty frustrating, and it's not a good PR, or it's not good PR for Verizon. Let's take a look at the messages, and you can see press and hold here, add the text, and we'll do the Quick Brown Fox. I'm going to give him a shout out. The Quick Brown Fox is an awesome fan of HTC. These keys, I find they're very spaced, very easy to use, and because the display is so large, the keys are very easy to type on. Of course, you can do it in portrait and in landscape mode as well, so you can use it whichever way. I happen to prefer portrait. I'm not a big landscape fan, but you see, the keys look nice. Let me go into settings really quickly, because I can't remember if this comes with swipe or not. I want to say it does, but I guess, okay, so it does not. I was wrong. I'm not a big swipe fan, so I don't check for that by default, but it does not. Of course, you can sideload keyboards, or you can download some from the Android market. There's some great options in there as well. And Verizon's is different in that it separates SMS and MMS from voicemail. So if you're in the all messages, you'll see all. If you scroll over to SMS, you'll see those, and if you scroll over to voicemail, you do have to have a subscription to visual voicemail, but you can see your messages there. Visual voicemail subscription, $2.99 per month, so keep that in mind.